And I'm going to pass over the floor to, I thought Pamela, but you're not Pamela, to Pamela and the Blairy Show. Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry, we have certificates. Hi, Blairy. Yes, I think so. You guys don't want chairs, do you?
Hi. Hello, everyone. We are very happy to be here now officially launching WING's new report on philanthropy infrastructure. And I would like to ask for the presentation now. Okay, great. So this is our new report on philanthropy infrastructure. It's called Philanthropy in Focus. A new global picture of organizations serving philanthropy. Before going to the data itself, I want to talk a little bit about the report. In 2014, 3 years ago, WINGS launched its first report on philanthropy infrastructure in the last WINGS Forum. The real challenge for WINGS and for the field at that time, it was the lack of data on philanthropy infrastructure. So the main purpose of the study at that time was to really build a new set of database about organizations serving philanthropy. This report still has the purpose of increasing knowledge and understanding about increasing the knowledge and the understanding about the infrastructure of philanthropy, but it also has the purpose of raise awareness of the importance and the value of the field, to reflect about how can we expand and strengthen philanthropy infrastructure globally, and also to build the capacity of the field of philanthropy infrastructure. This is a big study that we take almost 1 year to do, and it's possible only because a lot of people are involved. So I would like to thank, first of all, WINGS members who responded to our survey, who are listed here. I also want to thank 19 academic institutions that responded to our special survey, and also to 8 foundations, 8 funders of philanthropy infrastructures that also supported us with their data and information. I want to thank WINGS funders and supporters who are listed here, and to give a special thank to CNA Institute in Brazil, who sponsored the report. I also need to thank the Foundation Center for being a great partner for WINGS in this report and in other initiatives as well. I also want to give a big thank to the Global Philanthropy Infrastructure Report Working Group, a group of people who helped WINGS by giving their knowledge and experiences and in building the questionnaire for the surveys we did. The authors that were invited to give a little bit of their experience and view of the field to the report. To my colleagues here on stage, Barry and Larry, and also Lauren, for being such a great team. To Wings team, so Benjamin, Sarah, Rebecca, Jasmine, and Julia, who also supported a lot in the development of the report, and to all partners and suppliers involved in this in this challenge. Okay. So a little bit about the methodology of the study, of the report. The report was informed by newly gathered data from Wings members. 63 members responded to our survey, which is a great number, more than we were expecting. Also by secondary sources. And for the very first time, we decided to expand the scope of the study, and we included data from the academic and education institutions that responded to our survey, and also a few information from the 8 funders that also shared their data with us. So before going to the data, we want to test your knowledge on philanthropy infrastructure.
Okay. This is where you have to do some work. And actually, during this session, we're going to send you a really important email. So I hope you're going to look at your phone or at your computer at some stage over the next little period. But before we do that, we're going to use our little buzzers on the tables, whatever they're called, thingamajigs, and we're going to find out how much you know already. Okay? So the first question we're going to ask you, when it comes to an organization's sustainability, which of the 4 following factors is most important in determining how sustainable an organization is? Is it 1, large staff, 2, good technology, 3, large board, or 4, the longest service of the chief executive? Make your choices. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Okay, what do you say? Oh my God, they're right. The largest, all of those factors are important. They all have a bearing, but when you disentangle the effects of the 4 factors, you find the biggest driver is the longest serving chief executive. Okay, thank you. This shows the power of data, because now we're getting good data on Wings members. We can begin to unravel it in deeper ways. Second question, right? What is the only region where strengthening advocacy is the highest institutional priority? Is it 1, North America, 2, Europe, 3, Asia Pacific, 4, Middle East and North Africa, 5, Latin America and the Caribbean, 6, Sub-Saharan Africa? Make your choices. The 5. Well, you didn't get that right. It's Latin America and the Caribbean. So we're in the right place, guys, if we really want to get into societal change. Let's hear Maracas for Latin America. Okay. So this is one to the panel, 1 to you. So this is the decider. Okay. So which region of the world relies mostly on international foundations or grant makers? Is it 1, North America, 2, Europe, 3, Asia Pacific, 4, Middle East and North Africa, 5, Latin America and the Caribbean, 6, Sub-Saharan Africa? Make your choices. Well, you're only partly right. And you know what? What mostly screws us up in the world is our assumptions. And the truth is that the Middle East and North Africa ties with sub-Saharan Africa. So for the moment, we'll call that a score draw. Okay, but at least this justifies that actually our little book, which will be available later, and Larry and I and Pamela will personally sign it. I know that will devalue its value, but we will do it if you want. You can collect it later. But it does justify the fact that we do actually need facts about our sector. So, you want a mic?
I want a mic.
Oh, you want everything.
I need a mic. I need a mic. All right, the questions are not yet over. I have 2 more questions for you. And this time, shake your maracas in response to these questions. The first question is, shake your maracas if you believe that the work of infrastructure organizations is essential to the field of philanthropy. All right, I think that's maybe as close as we ever get to unanimity, which is what Barry doesn't like very much of. Barry loves variance. But we have almost unanimity here. Now, here's the second question. The second question is, shake your maracas if you think the value of infrastructure organizations is well understood outside of this room. Oh my.
I think that's called a gap analysis.
All right, so one of the things obviously that comes out of this work that we're doing is that there is an awareness gap, and we all need to do our part to fill it. But given that everyone in this room believes in the power of the infrastructure to help shape the work of philanthropy and support it, what do we need to do to grow and strengthen philanthropy infrastructure? In the report, we've identified 6 necessary activities, and I'm going to underscore the word necessary because it was deliberately written that way. So these 6 activities are the thoughts that we want to leave you with as you take away the information from this session. And I will talk about the first 2 items on this list, ensuring the long-term sustainability of philanthropy infrastructure organizations and recognizing evaluation as a high priority for philanthropy infrastructure organizations. And then I'll turn it over to Barry and Pamela, who will take you through the other 4 high priority items. Now, what I'm going to say about sustainability and evaluation can be summed up in 4 words and 1 phrase. And I'm going to give you those 4 words and 1 phrase right now. And hopefully that will help you take away these learnings and begin to propagate them around the world. The 4 words are variance.
Yes!
Diversify, under-resourced, persistence, and finally, you've got to be kidding. All right, let me tell you what I mean by each of those. First of all, when we're looking at the sustainability question for philanthropy infrastructure organizations, the first thing we notice is variance. Not all philanthropy support organizations are created equal. You see the distribution represented this way in order to illustrate the fact that there are small infrastructure organizations, medium-sized infrastructure organizations, and a few large infrastructure organizations. They range from annual budgets of $58,000 on the low end to $42 million on the high end. And then you see clusters of infrastructure organizations at the $30,000 US area in the 3rd quartile as you're looking at towards the bottom half of the distribution. And the median income is $800,000. That means half of the infrastructure organizations that we surveyed have annual budgets of $800,000 or higher, and half have budgets under $800,000. That's a slight increase from what we saw in 2014. Not enough, but at least the trend is upwards. So the second thing I'd like to tell you about is about the long-term sustainability of philanthropy infrastructure organizations and what it is that philanthropy infrastructure organizations are currently relying on. And the key word here is diversify. The one particular finding that I would direct your attention to on this particular chart is the 89%, the bar at the top in the left-hand column, 89% of philanthropy support organizations rely in part on support from donation and grants. Well, when you're talking about sustainability, I've heard it said that reliance on foundation support is not a sustainability plan. So, while we're grateful for all of the support that foundations provide for infrastructure organizations, we need to keep in mind that as long as we're reliant on funds from foundations to support infrastructure organizations, we also have to continue to be relying on funding. We have to spend time fundraising. So it's not a long-term sustainability strategy. The next thing I'd like to show you on the next slide is related to my term under-resourced. What I'd like you to focus on here are the bars on the left-hand side of the chart. The first one says funding and financial sustainability. It's listed as the most important challenge, the biggest challenge facing organizations that provide support for philanthropy. And that means that it's a constant sense of having to continue to look at potential sources of funding to keep the doors open and keep the lights on. There's also staffing issues. People are concerned about staffing size and also concerned about the procurement of knowledgeable talent. What this says to me is that you're working in a situation that's characterized by being under-resourced. However, if you go to the next slide, you'll see that this is not necessarily creating an existential crisis for infrastructure organizations. Because when we asked whether they see sustainability as a major concern for your organization, you can see that most of the infrastructure organizations say that their sustainability situation right now is either very good or good. And only a few say that they have major worries about sustainability. So despite the fact that it's a major worry and it's a priority in these organizations, you are proceeding on with persistence. And finally, we look at the role of evaluation. If you look at where evaluation falls on this chart, and I know you can't see it, but you will as soon as you get the report, this is a listing of the top 10 priorities for infrastructure organizations right now, for the next 3 years. And number 9 is improve and or increase evaluation. Now this looks like it's a low priority in the context of this list, but actually if you look at the findings, 47% said it is either a high priority or an essential priority, and 46% said it was a lower priority. So actually what it is a high priority among higher priorities. And as the report indicates, we do need to consider evaluation as a really important part of the work going forward. So while organizations are focusing on things like expanding their reach, increasing member services, developing technological capacity, and so forth, at the same time, the pie chart on the left-hand side of the screen indicates that somehow or the other you are fitting evaluation work in. So kudos to you for that. Now I will turn it over to Barry, who will take us through the next set of findings.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about building a strong infrastructure for philanthropy where it's most needed. So here you will see the distribution across the world of WINGS members and academic institutions, and you find that North America is best served. But that's actually rather a false picture, because I would say follow the money. Next slide, please. And here is the real story of following the money, and you find that the distribution of total 2015 budgets from organizations serving philanthropy per region shows that 80% of it is in North America, 8% of it in Europe, and the rest scattered across the world. That is an agenda for action, if ever I've seen one, by WINGS. Next slide, thank you. And that's the staff figure. Again, showing, there is a correlation between size of budget and size of staff, but it's not nearly as dramatic, those figures, as the one you saw about when it was looking at the money. Next slide, please. These show the the distribution of the growth of support organizations over time, and seeing the peak. We're fairly sure that the peak has been reached in the years 2000 to 2009, and that the sub-Saharan Africa and Europe were the two kind of great drivers of growth during that period. It's pretty clear it's tailed off since. It's also interesting to note that during that period, not in the report, that Ford Foundation's philanthropy support peaked at 10% in the year 2006. Next slide. So building the partnerships that are needed for more effective philanthropy is the next thing. We have looked at the interrelationships between members of Wings, and we have found that 43 of 63 that we surveyed had 5 or more partnerships with other growing members. There is a growing interconnectedness across the world between members, and the factors that actually drive partnerships between members are actually fourfold: having a global reach, being older, having a large number of employees, and having a large budget. So the big ones tend to have more connections with others, though there is one counterfactual organization that has a very small staff that has a very high number of connections with others. And the best predictor of the number of partnerships is full-time staff, but the countervailing one actually has only three staff. And it's interesting to note the growing relationship between academic institutions and Wings members, which is very healthy, because that's something the academic community has been rather slow to catch up on this field, and I hope things will get better. Next slide. And now I turn over to a much better, higher class type of person. I know it's not a hard competition to win.
So the next 2 key learnings are focus on the activities most needed to build philanthropy and engage in advocacy to build a more enabling environment, which we have been talking about this morning. We ask our members the activities they are more engaged in. And what it's very interesting to note is that the type of philanthropy infrastructure organization really matters. So membership associations and networks, they are more engaged with more traditional activities from the field, like knowledge management, conferences and seminars and peer learning, while professional support organizations tend to focus more in technical issues, like, for example, strategic planning or grants management or training and capacity building. We compare this data that we collected about the activities with the data that we had in the 2014 report, and we actually saw that our members are more engaged with advocacy now. So that's a very good news. And this takes me to the last key learning, which is engage in advocacy to build a more enabling environment. We ask our members if they are engaged with advocacy, and the results we have were very surprising for us. They actually are engaged. 35% of them are extremely engaged, and 32% moderately engaged. So most of them are actually engaged in advocacy activities. But when we better look at the data that we have about advocacy, we see that there are some members that are still in a more of a development phase of working with advocacy, and some members that are already in a more advanced phase. Why that? We asked them about the activities that they engaged in to work with advocacy, and most of them are engaged in activities like knowledge production and dissemination, which is a very important activity, but it's also an activity more related to setting the ground for the work of advocacy. We also ask them about their level of capacity to undertake advocacy activities and how they access their impact in advocacy. And it's interesting to note that although we have an important number of organizations accessing both their capacity and impact as high or very high. The majority still access it's as medium, low, or none. So although we see that they are actually starting to be more engaged in advocacy activities, we still have a few challenges to face.
Okay, to conclude this part of the meeting, here is the report which will be available. There is a copy for each one of you if you want to get it. They were brought by the staff of Wings in various suitcases from Sao Paulo. They have packed with fascinating facts. It will sure become a collector's item in years to come. And if you get insomnia, you can look at the statistical annexes that I have produced, which Wings would love to publish, but they are actually not, will be online. Oh my God.
I've had enough of this. Too many facts and figures and statistics. What does it all mean? What difference do you actually make? I am the grim reaper of evaluation. I want to rid this world of wasted resources and infrastructure. I come from the dark side of assessment, where only things that count should be counted. So forget your maracas. Stand up and be counted. Stand up. Come on. Okay, let's see what you're worth. Stay standing if you have a theory of change. What? I'm going to have a lot of work to do today. Stay standing if you have systematic ways of learning from what you do. And finally, stay standing if you can prove to me your value for money. Okay. Does anybody want to come up here and account for themselves?
Yes.
Oh.
Grim Reaper. You are in for some surprises. I'm coming all the way from Romania to actually show that infrastructure, we know what we're doing, we know what we want to change, and also we are measuring the change that we're producing. In Romania, now there are 16 community foundations that are serving half of Romanian population. They've been invested $4 million in local projects, starting with local money. Would you call that impact, Grim Reaper? Are these data satisfactory to you? How about the 60,000 monthly donors that now can give their money because there are easy giving systems that allow for regular donations? Would you call that impact? And this is just what we're doing under the capacity section of our role. So I would have more data to bear you under, but I'm giving this pleasure to my colleagues too. Now just take this first C. And we'll see how you can deal with that.
Okay, you can go. Who's next? What have you got
That's
to say for yourself?
me, Grim Reaper. Thanks to the 4Cs framework, we're really clear in the UK at the Association of Charitable Foundations. We absolutely help build the capability of the foundation sector, and we can prove it. We have taken the 4Cs framework and used it systematically to build a watertight case for developing a UK-wide set of foundation good practice principles, not only building on the learning from our work at ACF, but from practices in the international community. Take that. Yes, run. This data has helped form the business case for developing not only the foundation good practice principles, but embedding these in the sector. Do you not think it is important to make sure foundations can stand up and be counted whilst being attacked by the press? The Daily Mail, particularly good for that one. Some of you might not know. Take that, O Grim Reaper, an important task in times such as this, wouldn't you say?
I spare you your life. Who's next?
Mr.
Francis.
Grim Reaper. So I'm about to speak to you about the connections. Do we all believe in the connections? Shake your maracas. So I'll share you the story of connections from Tanzania, where I come from. I work with the Foundation for Civil Society, and we are supporting CSOs in Zanzibar, the small island in the coast of Tanzania. So we are supporting about 20 organizations in Zanzibar, and out of these we have one big network. And the network, through our support, has created a big platform where they engage the civil society, but also with the lawmakers in the island of Zanzibar. Through this platform, what we are achieving is that we have a platform where people and their communities are engaging with the lawmakers. So through this platform, we have one, consultations. Members of Parliament are meeting with the communities, as well as communities sharing their views, their comments, and aspirations to the lawmakers. As a result, we are getting a lot of improvement on the legislative processes. And that's why we are saying connections helps. Connections are powerful. That's why, Mr. Grim Reaper, if we believe in the connections, we can make it happen. So let us start connecting, using our powers and resources to connect the people so that we have a big impact in our work. And
You're spared. Stay connected.
So keep on connected.
Is there another C out there? There is.
There is. There are three key ways in which the philanthropic sector can work towards increasing its credibility: public support and engagement, awareness raising, and transparency. In the Arab region, where our forum functions, we've made some progress in some ways, but we still have a ways to go in others. For instance, garnering public support and engagement is not always easy in many of the countries within the region due to various restrictions for the sector. But there are noteworthy innovative approaches to philanthropy that are popping up, with the region becoming a hotbed of activity for social entrepreneurship, for instance. One of the ways in which our forum is addressing another of the key factors, which is transparency, is by modeling a behavior of openness with regard to our financials, and by being accountable to our members and our donors by publishing annual reports, disclosing all our finances regarding our donors, our membership fees, our in-kind contributions, as well as the expenses and overhead costs. This practice is found across the region, to be sure, but it's not always consistent year to year. We're also trying to make the case for transparency, accountability, and good governance by raising awareness around these issues and the consequences of not practicing them, and by having the conversations at our annual members meeting, by publishing articles, and by hosting roundtables to bring these discussions to the forefront.
Go in peace, Nyla. I thought I had got rid of you.
I'm the angel of evaluation. Give me your maracas. And I'm here to see you off. Off. I am an angel of evaluation. Be careful you don't fall over, because I'd like you to die a painful, slow death. Life is difficult.
Compared to what?
I think he's getting the point, don't you?
Next, you'll be telling me there's an app for this.
Next, I'll be telling you there's an app for this. There is an app for this. There is the app. Click on it, and you can go to it. You should have received an email from the Wings office, which would enable you to click onto that app and get into the system. Now, while you're doing that, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how we got here. This has been a system that has been devised by Wings and DAFNE members for Wings and DAFNE members. It is an evaluation system based on 4 C's: capacity, building resources; capability, building skills, knowledge, and expertise; connections, building networks and relationships and power between organizations; and credibility, building the status and legitimacy of the field. And we have found 12 common outcome areas which actually enable this field to move forward together. This does not mean that we can compare, this is not a competition, but we find a way of talking about the kinds of state of the field in Turkey, in the UK, in Colombia, in wherever. We've got a common language of evaluation that we can use. And the tool is mostly qualitative. And we have argued about performance indicator after a performance indicator. But we have and we've written this up, and we want you to use this kind of system as a way of actually building the evaluation capability and capacity of the field. And the app is a fairly simple, this is a simplified version of the system, separate from the 4 C's, but it gives you a way of entering into each of the 4 C's and gives you a way of actually looking at where you stand. So could we click on the first one? Now that you can get this, first you've got to enter your email. So this is my results here, Barry Knight at Crane House. Here we are. Talk among yourselves for a minute. Isn't technology wonderful? How are we doing, Sarah? Social problems, myth, business, or... Oh, here we go. .eu. That shows my allegiance. Okay, and I'm gonna choose Europe. You choose what you want, where you are. Okay, and I'm gonna say support organization. And here I can give my rating on a scale of 1, which is low, and 3, which is high. And the question is, the state of the field, what does philanthropy look like in your region? So I'm going to give this score 2.2. So there's a slider, and I slip it up to 2.2. That's it. And then I go to the next one. Now, building capability, building skills, knowledge, and practice. Again, these are the criteria. So if 1 is the philanthropy sector is not well developed and lacks professionalism and the required knowledge and skills. 2, organized and institutional philanthropy exists, but there is scope for increasing professionalism, knowledge, and skills in the sector. 3, the sector is highly professionalized and underpinned by recognized standards of practice. I'm going to give that 1.8. Okay. Now, connections. Score 1, philanthropy tends to work in isolation. Relationships within the sector and between philanthropy sector and others are weak. 2, the value of building relationships between people and organizations within the philanthropy sector and with others is recognized, but the practice is underdeveloped. 3, there are strong connections with the philanthropy sector and with others that contribute to informing policy and practice. Okay, I'm going to give that 2.4. So you enter your scores now. And finally, credibility. 1 is the value of philanthropy is not well understood or recognized by the public or policymakers, and or the philanthropy sector is not transparent. 2, there is reasonable understanding of the role and value of philanthropy, but there is scope for improvement. 3, the profile of philanthropy is high and its role and impact is widely recognized. I would give that 2.5. Okay, next. So now this gives you the opportunity to rate your extent of influence over these things. So the first one is, to what extent does your organization, how much influence have you had on your organization on the field? So I'm going to give that a 2.3. So 1 is little or no influence. 2 is we played a partial role. 3 is strong evaluative evidence that our intervention has played a major part. Again, I'm going to give that 2.3. Building relationships, the criteria little or no influence, a partial role, strong evaluative evidence, 1.6. Overall influence on credibility, little or no influence, 2 partial role, 3 strong evaluative evidence, I would say 1.6. Next, okay. So this gives me a state of the field, which is shown in blue, and the degree of influence, which is shown in brown. Do you follow that? So if you fill this out, you'll get your own score. And you'll be able to use that and say, this is the 2017 score. You can use this in staff meetings and look at the variation between different people, use it as a tool, as a ready reckoner. There's nothing, I really don't want to be quoted about this, but there is no magic in these numbers, even though I earn my living as a statistician. And if we want to look at the state of the field, we can see my results, the regional results, and all results, and look at the influence between them. Okay? And the level of influence, a similar graph. Thank you for paying attention while I've been up here. And I just want now to get your maracas and get me a place in heaven, okay?
Thank you, Barry. You should know that all members of the last session are available for birthday parties, christenings, and weddings, should you need them.
And there's a session that you can go into much more detailed depth of this with the team that devised this tomorrow at 11:30. That's a commercial break, okay? There's a lot of technology behind all this, which you can see, and we will make transparent in the interests of the Grim Reaper not coming back. Thank you.
It's lunchtime. I am the Merry Reaper of lunch. So lunch is where we had coffee. We're going to resume at 2:30 for the concurrent sessions, which are on this floor and the floor below. And there will be volunteers lurking around to tell you where to go. So enjoy your lunch and see you all later.